right, welcome back everybody. Vaihdamme nyt siis esityskielen englanniksi. So we're moving on to the unofficial part of the 2025 Inderes AGM, and due to the international nature of our board, we now switch to English. As you can see, I have here with me the Inderes board, newly elected chairman Joakim Frimuri. Yep. Am I standing on the way? No, sorry. Maybe I just better sit down. I think it makes it easier. All right, go on then. Newest member, Hanna Raftel, Helena Norman, Nina Kjellström, and Tero Vekrut. And joining us as well is the Inderes CEO, Mikael Rautanen. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The name of the game is quite obviously the question and answer session. We'll begin with a warm-up discussion, addressing a few topics with the board. We'll then continue by opening the floor to audience questions. And to our online participants, you can present your questions using the viewing page chat functionality. And to our audience here in Tavastia, Helsinki, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring over a microphone. Now, sadly, I can't really see that well to the back, so if I don't recognize you raising your hand, just scream or something. And if you'd rather not present your question in English, you can speak in Finnish, and I will do my very best to translate your question to the board. I think I might need a pen for that. There we go. Now, let's begin, shall we? Let's start by asking a couple of questions to the latest addition to the board, Hanna Raftel. Hanna, you have broad experience from global financial industry. What convinced you to join the board of a small Finnish company?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. So I think I mentioned some of it when I did my introduction. One was the mission of Inderes, the democratization of information. That's an incredibly... It doesn't matter where in the world, really, and it's very topical, right? So that's certainly one strong pull factor. And the other one that I also touched upon was the human capital. I think over the years it's become much more important to me personally who I do things with rather than what I do. And I think the team of the board and the founders and the management team has proven to be absolutely excellent so far. So that was important. And then I strongly feel that, you know, with my background, having worked 20 years abroad in Asia and in Europe, that I hopefully really can bring something, because there is two ways of growing a company, right? Either you grow it organically and you can do your own expansion, but you can also grow through acquisitions. And Inderes is already on that journey. And I hope to be able to continue to contribute to that. So, yeah.
Fantastic. What are you anticipating the most about working with the Inderes board?
Again, to me personally, to learn, right? Because that's what keeps me awake and on my toes, and to be personally also continue to be challenged. But I think, you know, we are in a phase with Inderes where it's really about growth and expansion. So to be able to sit here next year and say that we have achieved X, right? And then continue to make strategies and plans and big, hairy, audacious goals and keep pressing and pushing in a very tough environment, because we are in a very uncertain world. And I feel that, you know, all through the geographies that I've been working in and all through the different economic and financial cycles, what I take with me is that, you know, it's really head down and get on with it, and don't let too much of that interfere with your sort of daily life. So it's being part of that team to continue on the growth journey.
And one more question. You touched this briefly during the official part of the AGM, but what will you bring to the board in terms of your competence and experience?
Well, you know, I had the privilege of working for large listed corporations, and obviously in my role in equity research sales was to bring companies through their IPO journeys, to roadshow, and that was all fantastic to be part of large listed companies. But then having worked for growth companies where it's very much entrepreneur-led, and then down to startups. And, you know, I think there are good things to bring with you from each of these different categories. And I think what large companies do very well is scalability and setting up processes to be able to scale. So that's certainly one thing that I bring with me from that. And then working with entrepreneurs and working with startups and having the experience myself of setting up companies and being a co-founder is not to lose that creativity and entrepreneurship. So I think straddling the two is something that I hope that I can continue to do for Inderes as well.
Thank you. And we're moving on to our newly elected chairman of the board, Joakim Frimodig. What do you expect to bring to the company as the new chair of the board?
All right. Well, before answering your question, first I'd like to say thank you. I really feel honored and privileged to take over the role of chairman of this unique, and I think Kai used the adjective remarkable company. I like that, remarkable company. I've been part of the Inderes journey for a decade or so, as board member back in the days, as a client, customer in between, as a board member now. And to be able to step into this role is something I feel really excited about. I will do my utmost to take the company to the next level. Big boots to fill, as you heard today, with Kai's unique contribution to the company. And I think the starting point is excellent. The company is in a great shape. We are not in a position where we need to put out fires. We can look forward, we can continue to develop the company. And I think what I really look forward to is the next phase, taking Inderes from a very unique local player setup to a truly international player, finding the right mix for doing that and achieving something. Well, 50x, Kai, that's asking a lot, but we'll do our best. But, you know, a big figure anyway, and really making that step change in the coming years and driving that. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Great. Now, what do you each view as the main challenges for Inderes's international expansion? Maybe starting with Nina Kjellström.
You know what's funny? I always start with challenges, but I was thinking about opportunities in my head. So I'll answer your question, but I'll answer it differently. I think what I've been surprised of, this is now my third year starting in the board, I'm surprised how slow this industry is to innovate. I'm surprised how there's little use of like the latest and greatest technology out there. There's not as fierce competition as I see my day-to-day job being about. So I think there's massive opportunity to do things well with what Inderes has built. Now, the challenge is how do we do it well and right and fast and in a focused way with the team that is placed today. With 100 people, it's not that much. But with the 100 right people, you can do tremendous things. So that's going to be my answer, taking a positive spin. You won't hear me take that much positive spin in the board meetings, though. I'm much more of a challenger there. Hope it was a satisfactory answer.
It was indeed, thank you. What about others? How do you view this?
Maybe I could add, I think we have a number of really important strategic decisions to make over the coming years. And I think the good thing is that Inderes is in a position where we have different alternatives choose from how to go about this. What should we do on our own? Where do we need partners? Should we go country by country? Should we go more broadly? Should we choose one service as a spearhead? Should we go broadly at once into a new market? These are the types of decisions we need to make in the coming years. And if we make the right decisions, then we're going to be really successful.
And maybe if I may build on that, because I was new a year ago, so I was sitting on this stage the first time a year ago, and at that time, I thought that the growth was going to be about market by market, and it was going to be very much about Sweden. And I think the interesting part, and it is, growth is interesting because a lot of time you don't achieve as much as you think you would in the short term. On the other hand, you can achieve more than you think that you can do, but it will take longer. And I think that the discussions that we've had in the board and in the company over the past year has opened up a number of different routes and sort of started to really identify the key questions that you just mentioned, Jukka. And that creates more opportunity than I thought a year ago. And no, maybe we haven't come as far with certain short-term challenges as we thought a year ago, but I think we have come further on the bigger journey.
If I may add, as the CEO, what is the biggest challenge I see for international growth is that we have built a company over a decade based on a hyperlocal business model, hyperlocal culture, very close to local investors, close to local customers, and transforming that culture and mindset into an international thinking has been, it doesn't happen overnight. And I can experience that, I can tell that myself, because that mindset change has taken me like 2-3 years, and I'm still on the go, and the kind of like the whole organization also needs to catch up with that. So that I would name as the biggest one. But we're on it. It's happening all the time. And with the board becoming also more international. So.
Now, Inderes's growth was only single digits last year. What needs to happen to get back to the strong growth in your view? Maybe Helena, you could start.
I think I will continue on the same train of thought. I think that we need to decide how we're going to achieve the growth, and then we need to go after that. And this year it is a challenging environment, and there are challenges in the market, obviously, but it's also been a year of reassessing to some extent and opening up more opportunities. And I think that we need to put our foot on the pedal and decide which lane to go.
Any comments on that? Yeah, Tero.
Perhaps adding on the growth, it is extremely important for the company after these couple of years when the organic growth has not been great, but also we need to remember that in growth, every euro is not as valuable. And it goes back to the selection of strategy focus points. If we grow by adding one research customer in Sweden or Finland, that is one thing, but that is not really that scalable as a growth in global software business. And then I'd also add a bit on what Mikael said over there earlier. The culture has been very local, so it is, if you say a bit nastily, it could have become like a partnership of a law firm in Helsinki that was rejected, that path. But then there's a long way to a globally scalable SaaS business from where we are now. And then how much, I'm a natural scientist by education originally, how much can you stretch the DNA before the cell breaks? That's a interesting question.
Then where do you see opportunities for Inderes to now allocate resources or capital? Tero, maybe you could begin.
Well, everywhere, but I would again say that
choose two.
all euros are not created equal.
Yeah.
If you invest $1 million in hiring a dozen of equity analysts in Norway, say, or then if we invest that to create this super growth global SaaS business in the IR software, the dynamics are quite different. I think this goes back to what Jocke was saying. We will have quite interesting and important discussions to have and decisions to make.
Can I just add one thing? And I think, because we talked about the culture of the company, and Nina mentioned the fact that the market is not moving so fast. I think it's the culture of the customers as well, and the quite specific group that Inderes is addressing. There is a huge opportunity because not much has happened, but there is also, you need to do that in the right way, and I think that that's one of the strengths we have, is that we really understand the customer, we understand how they think, and for them to start moving, they need to move with someone they can trust. And I think that that's also, we need to really understand how to get this to start moving. There are obvious things that should happen that haven't happened yet, because no one's buying it.
I would add, maybe continuing on Tero's point, that really putting capital where we can scale the operations. I think there are opportunities for really good scaling of operations, and that's where the valuable euros come in, and that's where we can get the highest multiple also in terms of value for us shareholders for the company going forward.
That being said, I think all of the opportunities we haven't even seen yet, because now is the time of the curious, and I think Mikael and the team are curious by heart. So I think there's something big out there waiting still, even though there's already many things in-house that we can build upon. But I would encourage to be curious and to continue to figure this question out as we go.
How does this topic echo with you, Hanna?
Well, yeah, scalability for sure, right? And a return on invested euro is incredibly important. So, I mean, I think it's a combination of having the right product market fit and then push for growth. But it's a bit too early for me to say too much, I guess, but into the details. But what I do really want to push for is to have those big, audacious, hairy, scary goals, right? To think big and to dare to think far beyond almost Sweden as well and Europe. And then looking at the different verticals of products, right? To see which one is going to be more profitable and which one is most suitable to scale. And then perhaps that means that other products are not going to get the same investments. We shall see, right? Yeah.
Jocke, you had a comment?
I want to add one thing. I think we forgot the most important part here. We talk about resources and how we can economically develop value, but I think really where we should put effort is into the team and the people of the company and the culture that was mentioned earlier. I think that's the core of a company like Inderes, and there we should always keep that in mind in all of our decision making. So putting that first and foremost in almost every situation.
But just one thing, that, if I may, that I recognized quite early on is it's incredible, right, how Finland and Sweden can be such different markets, yet they're so close. And just the dynamics and the culture and traditions around the Inderes product suite, if one would call it that. So I think it's also recognizing those differences in the different markets and also see them as opportunities as well as challenges, right? So you really be aware of what to bring to which market.
I think now would be a good time to open the floor to audience questions. Do we have any brave participants? Yes, please.
I think as a just selected member of the nomination committee, I need to start. I have a question for Joachim and Helena. I start from the chairman. So congratulations for being selected. Looks like this year the key factor for being selected as a male person was having a black eyeglasses and a bit less hair. But I'm sure you have some other competencies as well. So my question is, you have been before in a board of Inderes. Was it 10 years ago or something? And now you are doing a second period. What can you see? What is the difference? How the company has changed during that time? Okay, we all know that there are more people and there are more products, but if you talk about the culture and maybe how the board is working, would be interested to hear how you see it.
Yeah, I think what remains the same is really the drive, the people, and the culture. And I think that's why I also mentioned that that is a core going forward, because that's really the hard DNA of the company that's going to drive the results also in the future. So I think that part has not changed. Of course, then the business has become much larger in scale, and I think the way of working has become much more professional. And looking at my colleagues around here, all the competence that we have on the board is actually quite unique for this size of a small local company. So very happy and proud about that. And also, I think in terms of know-how within the company and in terms of service lines and all the things that have been built and developed, I mean, that's something very different from the very purely research-focused company that I was on the board 10 years ago. Today, this is something much more valuable with a lot more opportunities going forward. But I think what has not changed might be the most important part to take on when you look forward as well.
Okay, thank you. And as a member of the community, I hope you have also noticed that the community has expanded quite.
Well, absolutely.
Okay. Helena, I would like to ask you that you are the first international member in the board, and usually it would be nice to see business as a business and not separate too much the different nationalities or countries. But as Hanna said, that the Swedish market is different than the Finnish market. So now, after 1 year experience, what do you think, what are the biggest differences, maybe Inderes as a company, how they work, but also the market, the Swedish companies and maybe the investors?
I think that there are many differences between the markets, but I think that there are two. If we look at the external market, there are two things that stand out, I think. One is that the view of commissioned research is very different between the two markets. And that's not so strange, because the view of commissioned research in Finland has been built by Inderes over the past 10 years. And in Sweden, no one has done that. So it is not viewed the same way, it does not have the same position, and the customers don't really understand the value of it. So I think that that's one difference if we look at the core business. And building from that and sort of stemming from that is the fact that the Inderes brand in Finland is so incredibly strong. And I didn't know that before I sort of was introduced to the company a year ago, but I've spoken to a lot of people since, and I also work more in my day job across Sweden and Finland. And in here, it's really in my line of business, in the communications world, it's really a household name. Everyone knows about Inderes. Everyone respects Inderes. And that creates a lot of opportunities to grow and to move into new areas, because you have a very strong credibility in the brand. In Sweden, the brand is largely unknown. And of course, that doesn't sort of create that same possibility to build from it. And I think that that's one of the things we've been discussing very much this year. If you don't have that, then what is the core? What do you grow from? And that has created these sort of different routes. So I think that these two dimensions really create completely different starting points. But it also means that none of those topics for Sweden are specific for Sweden. They're actually valid for all markets outside of Finland. So it's not so much that Sweden is different from Finland, it's more that Inderes' position in Finland is very unique. And to replicate that in a different market is very difficult. But there are other ways of growing and other ways of sort of addressing the market. So I think that would be my easy. Then there are lots of other differences, but these two are very fundamental.
Thank you for great questions, Teemu Hinkula. Any other questions from our shareholders in the audience? Now, don't be shy. It does indeed seem that we have covered all of the important topics and they have been addressed. And it also might be, who knows, that that people are getting hungry. There is a question.
Thank you. I'm Frans-Mikael Rostedt. I have a question for Tero. You have been a member of the board now for a very long time, and I'm wondering, you have seen a lot, we have grown a lot, we are now a very different company since you started. So if you think about the last few years, are there some things that you feel like might be dangerous for us, or like are becoming a problem, or some things that you think that we should now really act on, or like that they don't become a problem in the future? Like what are the few things that you see as threats that have come into your view in the last few years and we should maybe think about and act on?
Well, there's a lot there. First, I'd like to start by saying that it would be good to look at the opportunities and not just threats. I'll perhaps address some of the constraints. But before going there, I might say, related to your introduction, yes, I am definitely in my uncomfort zone, or outside my comfort zone, in more ways than one. Firstly, I'm the first time in my life, and I guess this is quite a unique experience for many people in Helsinki as well. I'm now in the minority, representing minority gender in a board, which I'm sure some people here have experienced, but I have not, and I'm sure quite a. Not sure, Jokke, you have that experience?
No, first time.
So this is the first time in my life I'm in a minority gender in a board of a company, and in many other ways. Also, I like to look into the future, and I'm representing the Jurassic element here, like we discussed last year. So I'm a legacy, I'm a dinosaur, I'm a setamies and all that. So that's taking me further to a uncomfort zone. But this is probably a good thing, because like Mikael said, we thrive when we get into our uncomfort zones. And we definitely are that still in Nordics. Even more when we start to think about the opportunities in Europe, even if they come down like ripe fruits, like this software business that Mikael was referring to earlier. But then we have not even started to think about the world outside Europe. And even in the last 2 weeks, I have not heard anyone put a customs duties on export services like Inderes. So that might be an opportunity. We have been teasing in these cassettes, Mikael and the team, about Romania. I brought up a few meetings ago, first time Japan, so now we're going to launch in Japan. Might be a new cassette element over there. So I think the threat is to think too small. We have been doing that all the time, from the very beginning. Before I was there, or Kai was there, they had the thinking that when we get 100,000 euros of revenue, then we will have no problem whatsoever. That's
That was
a lot
400,000.
400,000, okay.
That was the holy grail, 400,000 revenue, and then we will have
But there was
no problem.
That's probably 100K per employee or something. But then that was definitely thinking too big, too small. Then there was like whether you expand into the community, whether you expand from the equity research, commissioned research, and Mikael went through all of that. I think the threat has always been to think too small. And we still face that, and until we go to Mars after some madman in America, if the Earth market is getting too small, I think we will still continue to face that. But then at the same time, the threat is the DNA. How much can you stretch that? Because the complexity, when it increases in product-wise and the market-wise, and then internationalization, and the scale becomes bigger, then the culture, can it be the same if you are writing a research report about Martella or thinking about scalability in South America, which we will hopefully do. We will launch in Uruguay in 5 years, right?
Perhaps.
Yeah. So then can those people really be combined in the same culture and the company? I don't have an answer. but I think that we need to think about Japan and Uruguay.
It's such a great question that can I also try to give one
Absolutely.
perspective, with not, of course, the same tenure as Tero here, but I've been thinking recently that I think a company's biggest obstacle for future success is actually past success. And what I mean by that is believing that if you replicate exactly what you have done in history, you will be successful in the future as well. And especially going to more and more markets, we have now gone to 30. There's always something you need to rethink completely when you enter a new country or a new business line. And one of my favorite sayings is strong convictions loosely held. So you need to believe in something, but you need to be ready to be wrong and change your opinion almost every day. So the great success in Finland is also, unfortunately, the biggest obstacle for future success elsewhere.
But, yeah, after you.
No, but to take a very practical and pragmatic approach to that question is also, I mean, and this is general, right, in business now, you need to consider also things like cybersecurity. You need to build a company with really strong resilience because clients are relying on us, right? And I completely agree, you need to push the boundaries and otherwise that becomes a risk factor in itself. But also in terms of technology, and you touched upon that, right? That with AI, it's completely changing how we do things and how fast products get rolled out and how fast we can develop code, et cetera, right? So not being on the forefront of those technological advancement is a huge risk for any company, because if you're not on your toes, you will fall behind, right? So I think those are just two of other potential risks.
Can I still add something? It's also thinking to small, but also the DNA goes to you, dear shareholders. We need to take care of the profitability. We have always been a profitable company. And then investments in like global SaaS business, the euros are not created equal there, but also there are a lot of more of them if you start to really grow globally. And that goes back to this DNA thing. Can you really have these in the same company? I don't personally think we should compromise profitability, because I guess you come here after that, and Reali Osinko is one thing, but also near-term profitability. So we have a lot of food for thought.
It's really great here listening to my board colleagues describing us as a forward-looking modern company focusing on AI and technology. And I think these are important elements. But what do you say, dear colleagues here? Should we move on from C cassettes to CDs now? I think that could be the next phase.
Let's go MP3.
The new frontier. Mikael, you had some comments.
For me, the threat, like you can draw a line on the other hand of the spectrum, is staying on your comfort zone and not developing and becoming irrelevant slowly that way, and the company eventually dying. And on the other hand of the spectrum, which is something I actually learned as an equity analyst, is indigesting too many things at once. So it's actually growing too much and trying to do many things at once that actually kill many companies. So you need to balance between these two spectrums, while, like Tero mentioned, keeping a great care of your financial health and profitability and cash flow and so forth. So that's the challenge of disciplined anarchy.
With these words, thank you, our great board. Thank you, Mikael. And obviously, thanks to all our shareholders in the room and online. I think now it's a good time to move on to Reali Osinko, which would translate to real dividend. So food, I think, would be the next big thing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.